Alrighty, welcome back. Well, today we're looking at the Jonsbo N3. Kind of want to make this video as an exit interview for this case, as I prepare to kind of move everything out of this case and into the JMCD12S4. I wanted to go over some of the features of the case, some of my likes, some of my dislikes, and kind of just share some information on this one so that if you are looking at maybe getting a Jonsbo N3, you're maybe a little bit more informed on some of the things about this case. So let's go ahead and I'll do a quick tour around the outside. We'll open it up and I'll show you kind of what I got going on the inside. Looking at this case, at the front here, we do have this top part, which is where your motherboard's going to sit. Here we do have some perforations in the front. What you don't immediately see here is that this right half is going to be blocked by your SFX PSU. So there's not going to be a lot of air intake coming in on this side, and the other side is going to be free, but not going to bring in all the air to the CPU. As we open it up, you'll kind of see some of the choke points there. Now, these perforations are pretty small. I personally don't think it lets a lot of air in. There is a good amount of side intake and side vents that will probably let more air in, and as we go around, you kind of see that. But once we open this bad boy up, you'll kind of see where the choke points are. There is also a plastic filter behind this, a thin plastic mesh filter, similar to what there is at the bottom here, and we'll take a look at that in just a minute. Right below this section, we do have a USB 3 port there, a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, USB-C, and then your power button that does illuminate, as well as your status indicators for your hard drives. All those do illuminate. At the bottom half here, this is where your drives go. It's got this magnetic plasticky cover to it. I'll show you you can probably see the mesh filters there. There is a good amount of dust on this case where I'm using this. It does get pretty dusty. You'll see here the metal that serves to magnetize this to the case there. And you'll see that kind of just sits in there with this little cloth pull tab there. All right, looking inside, we do have 8 bays here. For my particular setup, we have 6 12 terabyte HSGT and WD drives. Those are being used as data drives, and then our 2 parity 12 terabyte drives as well. Taking a look at the drives themselves, there are no caddies in here. It's kind of just on this rubber system where it uses rubber grommets. They're not the smoothest. They're not easy to pull out by any means. You'll see that they do get a bit chewed up here. Hopefully you can see that. And then this pull tab, you can see it's already kind of stressing there. So maybe not the most durable thing ever, but it is one way to do it. It does, I would say, provide a little bit of dampening for the vibration from the drives, but you can still, when this thing is at full speed and spun up, you can still hear it kicking around. So not going to say that that's, the best way to do it, but it's not bad. And it does make the case a little bit more cost effective. All right, let me put this back on and we'll do a tour around the case, starting with this side here. So you'll see that there's ventilation at the top here, and then nothing at the bottom for the hard drives. What you don't immediately see is right here, there's a 2.5-inch SSD drive, which is causing a little bit of a choke point there. If you do have a bigger GPU in here, this might be where the intake's at, or the intake fan, or a blower fan. It can choke there. That's one of the concerns I have with the case. While there is a lot of ventilation up top, it does choke a little bit, and we'll see that when we get inside. Outside of that, nothing else on this side, nothing too interesting. Around the back here, got a lot going on. So we got 2 92mm fans. These do not come with it on the top here. Those were purchased by me. In here, we got a ASRock Z690 MITX AX motherboard and an NVIDIA P2000 in there. Power cable goes in here. It's just a normal IEC cable. And then around the bottom here, we do have 2 92mm fans. They're labeled as 100mm, but they work with the 92mm slot, so it might just be a little bit of extra housing plastic material around the fan. You have thumb screws at the bottom. I'll go ahead and unscrew that real quick. Now, these screws are not captive. They will fall out, so be mindful of that whenever you open this up. Have these little tabs here to pull that out. The fans themselves do come with these grills here, so that'll protect from hitting any of your SATA cables. The backplane on this is a SATA backplane only. It's not going to do SAS. You can see it's SATA connectors going to the motherboard. We'll get in here a bit more and kind of look around. I'll take the drives out, make it easier to navigate, and we'll do a deeper dive in there. Let me close this back up and we'll finish going around the side, and then hopefully open this bad boy up, take the drives out. Taking a look at the other side here, same thing as the opposite side. We got some ventilation up here and nothing at the bottom for the drives. Again, what you're not seeing is the PSU is here. There is a bit of gap there for air to get in, but then we also have an SSD right here, kind of blocking some air from getting in. All right, that's the outside of the case. We'll go ahead and let me take the drives out, put them somewhere safe, and we can take a look at the inside. All right, I have all the drives out. I have the fan bay in the back out. I have all the screws out of the top here. Quick quirk I do want to mention about this case, the screws for the top that hold the top in, they're Torx T8s. Would have liked to see some Phillips heads there. Definitely not the easiest thing to get out, not the best screws to use there, especially if you're not someone who has a lot of Torx bits. But yeah, that's what they're using. Take this off here. Again, mesh on the sides. You can see it from the inside, kind of just glued in. It is a strong piece of metal, definitely something nice there. With the cover off, let's go ahead and do another tour here. All right, back to the side. So this is what I'm talking about. This is a 2.5-inch SSD here. There is some room for air to get in, and maybe not the best angle here. You'll see that there's, you know, just under 2 fingers of depth there, but you're still not pulling in a lot of air with this covering here. On the other side, you'll see that the PSU kind of eats this whole chunk here. It'll blow out this way. We have an SSD here, so there's not a lot of space here for the CPU fan to intake. On top of that, you got to do some cable management. It's a really tight fit in there. It might just be my inexperience of working with ITX cases and ITX builds, but this did end up choking my system. I had a i7 12700K in here, so that might have also been a little overkill. But you'll see that it's hard for this cooler to pull air in because the PSU is right here in front, and there's no direct access to air from the front panel. It would kind of have to come in on this side, snake through, and get to the cooler there if it's not already eaten up by the GPU. The other thing, there's not really room here for a fan, for an intake fan. So you kind of have to build pressure on the backside with those two 90 millimeters. But really what that's going to do is that's going to bring in air from the sides, not from the front, because the perforations on the front are so thin. All right, coming around back here, you'll see we have quite a lot going on. So for SATAs, we're running 8 SATA connectors. 6 of them are in these blue multi-cord cables. And then we got 2 black ones there. You'll notice I'm running all right angle ones. You can run the straight ones. However, I did have a problem with them pushing against the fans. None of the cables were going into the fan grate, but they were pushing against it, so I just didn't want to risk it. Got the right angle ones. For power, we have 2 Molex connectors and a SATA power connector. From everything I've read, you really only need to plug in the Molex connectors here. So I haven't plugged in that SATA port at all. Haven't had any issues with it. Been totally fine. And then in the top corners, either corner there, you'll have PWM headers for your fans. From everything I've seen in my experience, they just run the fans at 100%. There's not really any kind of ramping up or ramping down of the fans there, or any fan control. Luckily, I keep this under my desk, kind of away from anywhere that I could hear it. So with all the fans that are in this thing, I really don't ever hear this thing. That and the fact that, you know, the drives will be louder than the fans. Fan noise for me isn't really an issue with this case. Now, if you do have this on top of your desk or somewhere where it's closer to you, you may have a different opinion on that. Again, that's all going to go based on kind of where you put this thing. In this case, there are some pass-throughs, mostly on this side. Hard to film there, but there is a pass-through for cables that come up to the top panel. And that's pretty much it that we have around back. And then at the bottom, you'll see we have 4 feet here They are screwed in, which is nice, but outside of that, nothing too special on those. All right, so up here in this top corner, you can see there the pass-through for the cables. You'll see that I have this SATA cable going in there, and kind of some of the extra slack going through there. Cable management in this thing has been really tricky. I have a nice thin 1-slot graphics card in here, the P2000. If you are running a bigger graphics card, this might be a difficult case to build in for you. I'll get dimensions showing on the bottom here with how big of a graphics card you could fit. Outside of that, not much else. Biggest gripe I had with this case is the air coming into the cooler. You'll see that with this PSU here blocking it, there's not really much that you'll have come in. If you take off the SSDs that I have here on the sides, you probably will get more air in, but it's not going to be directly from the front. And it may be exhaust air from the PSU there. So it may just be hot air. Overall, I've gone ahead and swapped the CPU in here from a 12700K to a 13500T. Of course, going from a 125 watt CPU to a 35 watt CPU is going to do a drastic difference in temps. I probably don't need this Be Quiet cooler anymore. And thinking about not transplanting that over to the new case. But that's pretty much where I'm at with this case. Some of the limitations here were that backplane not being a full SAS backplane. Airflow being a little tricky in this case. Cable management being a little tricky in this case, not having a lot of room there. But also, I do need to add more drives, and I'm running out of the ability to do that. I could always remove the graphics card and add a HBA and a disk shelf. But any disk shelf I look for is going to be rack mountable. So it might be best to just start with a rack mounted case, which is what I'm going to end up doing. If you have any questions on this build in particular, or on this case, feel free to send me a message, comment below, or hit me up however you can. I'm here, I'm on Reddit, wherever you saw my video, you can hit me up there. I will most likely be getting rid of this case. As for the motherboard and the processor, probably going to use that to build a Hackintosh, or build a SFF gaming PC. Looking at a Lian Li Dan Case A3, so that'll probably come on the channel sometime soon. For now, that's pretty much everything I have on the Jonsbo N3. If you have any questions, feel free, like I said, to reach out. And thank you for watching.